1. This story happened around 6 years ago, when I worked for a retail company we will call No-Op. Jay was well known to be a thief by the base staff and some of the lower levels of management. Unfortunately, she was a golden girl to Mo and Travis, and we never had any solid proof. We also didn't get pay docked, etc., unless it was over a certain amount, which it never was, so staff never had a real incentive to try and find proof. One of Jay's favorite things to steal were vouchers for money off products or shopping, because you were just supposed to rip them up and put them in the safe. There was no official way of counting these to return them to the company, so she could use them again in a different store and get away with it. This particular day was Halloween, and I was on till 4, the only till with no cameras on it. Mo came up and paid for her shopping with some gift vouchers she had received at a store manager's meeting because the store was doing really well. I served her, and no one else touched my till all day because I was the main person on the tills for this shift. We closed up for the night, and Jay took the registers to be cashed up. I went out to the pub with friends and had a good night not knowing what was coming. The next shift I'm on, Mo calls me into the office and tells me that the vouchers she used were not in the safe, and she knew that it was my till. She wanted me to return the vouchers and would not press charges or put anything on my file if I just returned them immediately. I, of course, did not have them and testified as such, but she didn't believe me. I went looking everywhere. The bin under till 4 and the bins outside, under the tills, and on the floors around the tills, just in case I had dropped them, or put them somewhere dumb while trying to sort out cash, etc. Roughly an hour later, Jay comes in, hears what's going on, and offers to look as well. She finds them in 30 seconds flat, somewhere I had already looked. I essentially hissed out, "What a coincidence that as soon as Jay looks there, she finds it immediately. How coincidental!" Seething with white fury as I knew she was now framing me for her own theft. She could have found them in the office and made it a simple mistake, but no, she made me the fall guy for her own idiocy. I tried to plead my case to Mo and Travis, stating that I wouldn't be dumb enough to steal vouchers that I knew were Mo's, because I was the one who served her. One of the other team leaders, Paul, knew fine and well it was Jay and tried to tell Mo and Travis that I was being set up, but she was a golden girl and could do no wrong while my name was mud as far as they were concerned. Heck, they thought Jay had caught me in the act. This meant war. Over the next few months, I got really friendly with Jay, flirting outrageously with her, and basically pretending like I really respected her and that we were good buddies. It took me a while to work my way into her trust, but once I was there, I knew I could catch her stealing and prove it. We wasted off a load of Christmas chocolate products that hadn't sold, and I put them in a bag to be put in the bin. Jay said we should take them home against company policy and seen as stealing because they were just going to waste otherwise. Where we stood underneath a camera just outside of its range, so I said, "I don't want any, but if you want them, you can have them," and put them on a trolley just inside of the camera's range. I had studied the camera angles in great detail, preparing for a moment exactly like this. I saw her look at the camera, down at the trolley, and back to the camera before walking off to get her stuff. I warned my colleagues not to take any of the chocolate even if offered, and had an evil grin on my face which my colleagues commented on. When Jay came down, she nonchalantly picked up the bag as if it was her shopping, offered chocolate to everyone, and walked out the door with it. Gotcha, bitch. The next morning, I arrived for my shift and put on the most somber face possible as I approached Travis. "You should check the cameras on the back door at approximately 22:21. I think you'll find what you see very interesting." He asked me to explain further, and I looked over towards where Jay was, not even 5 meters away, and looked back. "I can't go into further detail right now, but I would strongly suggest you go and look at the cameras for that time. Now." Travis begrudgingly walked off to do just that, and within 10 minutes Jay was called into the office and her bag was searched. Within the hour she was suspended pending investigation, and within the week she was fired and barred from the store. I got a full apology from the managers who didn't believe me, who explained they genuinely believed it was me, and had no idea Jay could possibly have been a thief. Their jaws hit the floor after I explained that every member of staff knew she was a thief, but that we didn't feel like we could do anything about it. After going around asking people if this was true, I got another apology. 6 months later, I was offered training to become a team leader myself. I took it, but ended up quitting for a white-collar role in a different company before I finished my training. 2. I did this to an ex who asked me to move out while she was on a work trip and told me she was coming back with her new boyfriend. We were still together when she left. I got these little noise-makered, battery-powered ones the size of a quarter that emit sounds at just the right volume that you aren't sure if you really heard it. So quiet that 2 people could be sitting in an average-sized room, and while one could barely hear it, the other wouldn't hear a thing. They last ages and fit perfectly in light fixtures and in wall outlets. I got a box of 20 of them for like $100 on eBay, and got so creative all over the house. Her car, I even hid them in a boat her father got her. Rich family, and she grew up sailing. Now these little bastards make a noise at complete random intervals. Could be minutes, could be hours, could take a whole day off. The noise cycles like children laughing, a dying breath, as they called it, a whistle, scratching noises, some other ones I can't remember, but you get the idea. It was so unpredictable it was near impossible for someone to just figure out. Months go by, I get a new place, get my life back up. Now, we had a few friends in common, and one of them I kept up with. They were kind of sour about how she ended things, but they had grown up together and kept up the friendship, loosely talking and catching up on occasion. I never really asked about her, but one day we got to talking, and he's wanting to prank some friends on a camping trip, so I tell him about the noisemakers. As I'm telling him about them, he slowly starts making this face like he's gradually losing his shit. He's got this huge grin on his face and asks me, "You put these in her shit, didn't you?" And when I admit it, he starts laughing hysterically. Turns out her new boyfriend had only lasted a few months, and had left telling her that he couldn't handle whatever was going on with them in their mental states. Turns out, for a while, they had both heard things and sometimes only one would hear them, which gave the illusion that something really fucked up with them was going on in their heads at different times. They couldn't figure it out, and eventually he wanted out completely, and having run down all the crazy list of shit people who are hearing voices would think, ended it believing he had been infected with some brain worm the government was putting in vaccines or something like that. It was amazing. I hadn't expected to hear anything about it. I rode that train for weeks. When it went away, I got another hit of that high. She moved out, told her parents she didn't want the house and to give it to her brother or sell it. Wouldn't tell them why. I always tell people who ask about her that I hold no grudge. And don't tell them the part where I totally fucked with her so bad I overshot the got her backstage and hit the blissful state of satisfied with my work. My wife knows this story by heart, because it's her favorite one to tell. 3. A few years back in 2018, I had decided to switch employers. I worked from home as a chat support specialist and eventually a supervisor for a major tech company. I decided to switch to a small-time customer support agency that was just starting a new chat team. They had better pay and benefits because they only had a small number of employees compared to the former. The description of the position I was hired for was another salary-based supervisory role for their brand new chat team for the client. I'd basically be doing the same things as my previous job, but also spearheading this small department, while simultaneously training other co-workers with zero experience in chat support. This was going extremely well, and our client was ecstatic at the results of the new chat program. They had personally sent me an email over my progress. The company I left was, and still is, known worldwide to have the friendliest and professional customer support out of any other company, and so it was easy to apply what I learned to this new position. After about 2 months of doing this, the person I directly reported to, the regional supervisor, was retiring. Our new regional came in, and was friendly at first, but decided that he didn't want to waste his time on chat, and directed me to phone support. Which was not in my job description, nor what I was hired for by any means. He cited that the client was unhappy with the results, which was in stark contrast to what they had told me directly. Even after forwarding him the email, he was still not doing anything about it. So I complied. It took just 2 days for the client to have reached out to me personally. After explaining to them the situation, they were livid. My new regional had lied to me about his contact with the client, and had essentially ignored our client's attempt to contact him about this issue. I had continued to work in the supervisory role for the phones until the first quality review of my employees came up. For team leads and direct call center employees, both, this is where I review their interactions and grade them based off their strengths and weaknesses. Our regional wanted me to even include the chat support team who were neither hired nor trained for phones. He refused to give them training. On every single employee who was hired for chat support, I had filed all of them as unable to be completed, and in my notations, I included that this is not the position they were hired or trained for, and thus an analysis could not be accurately completed. And I sent this to both the regional manager and our client as well. At this point, I had a direct contact email. I was responded to the same day by whoever it is within our client who oversees all outsourcing. The only words I got back were, "We will deal with this." The client held a meeting the following week with my employers. I'm not sure what was said in the meeting, but word got back to everyone that the client had dropped us for breach of contract, because this was a small office and our company's only client for several years. This was bad. After that, me and my team were offered a position with the company directly, doing the things we were hired to do, but required us to move about 4 hours north. So unfortunately, none of us decided to accept the offer. I collected unemployment until I found a new job. Now the company is out of business and is currently being sued by some other employees for unpaid wages. This case has been going on since 2019. For clarification purposes, it's just one office of less than 300 employees. The name of his position was Regional Supervisor. It was pretty stupid to name him that, but that's what he was called, even though he worked the only office that existed. I'll assume it was to make a role look more attractive than it actually is. That's a common happenstance. 4. A bit of background. I work for a big, important, and essential government company. My department was basically a giant archive with a twist. All of us working there were trained archivists. But we were also responsible for all the documentation that was required by and from various contractors or other departments. Permits, city or building schematics, maps, you name it. It might seem like we were overworked, but you couldn't be more wrong. We had a great boss. Everyone was on a first-name basis, friendly atmosphere. Inadequate to the amount of work done, but still a pretty good pay. It was perfect. If you ever worked for the government, then you know that when the country elections end, and a new governing body is elected, you can expect a change will be coming to your workplace. The change came upon our company in the form of a new director. About a month later, our boss was summoned to the director's office. After coming back, he told us that the new director was looking to outsource our department because she didn't see worth in keeping us, but couldn't find any company willing to work for less than we were paid. Instead, as of next month, we were all going to be paid based on our production goals, if you can even call it that in this type of work. Basically, she increased our goals by 10%, leaving us with the same base pay. But if any of us failed to meet the new goal, we'd lose a percentage of our pay for that month, equal to the missing work. On the other hand, if we did more, we'd be paid more. Now the compliance. As I've told you before, we had a great boss. We weren't working at 100% capacity. We were doing our job on time, no one ever complained, we were praised and all that. But we were never going at it with full force because we'd run out of work to do. Also worth noting, summer and winter were the busiest periods. It was mid-spring when our boss proposed a genius plan. That year, during summer and winter, we all worked like crazy, possessed workaholics, eating at your desk instead of going to the conference or dining room, so you can work at the same time and do more. Not taking breaks so you can do more. Someone needed some documentation or schematics, and we had until the next week to procure them. Sure, you'll get it tomorrow. You get the gist. That summer and winter we were paid a bit more than triple the normal monthly pay. Quick aftermath. Director lady tried to change our pay to salary. Boss told us, we all gave him a notice, director backed off. Then our boss was told that it wasn't set in stone that our contracts would be renewed or prolonged. And they weren't. Almost half the department lost their jobs. That was the end of November. The rector was under fire even before the situation with us because she made a lot more interesting decisions and was wholly unqualified for the position. But you know, connections. The rector was replaced by someone competent. We got our jobs back in January, salaried again, but with double the pay we had before, and some other good changes. The rector lady got a new position made for her in the company. Everyone knew it was a joke position, but, you know, connections. 5. I live in a small town with various rules about the state of one's yard. My yard is rather sizable, and I have a push mower. I have divided the yard into 3 major areas. The apple tree, a 50 by 45 feet downhill area, with an old apple tree in the center and thick forest on 2 sides. The front, the obvious one, between the house and road. 85 by 35 feet space and mostly flat, the north field. A very uneven area with several fields that is 50 by 100 feet, with that same thick forest mentioned above across the far side. Now, the town likes to remind me about keeping it short and neat, at the threat of a $100 fine, demanding it be cut weekly despite the weather aside from winter. These demands were borderline harassment, constantly sending people to check on if it's being cut and how much of it was done, even manually putting letters of notice in my mailbox. I have back problems involving nerve damage that prevents me from standing too long, so getting it all done in one go is difficult. So I would split the work into several days. They didn't like this and demanded it be done in a single day or take the fine. I checked into it, and renting a riding mower or paying someone else to do it would still result in $100, so no matter how I handle it, I'm still at $100. So I just risked it and kept splitting the work into 2 days, and now rarely 3. The town council started sending me pictures of what needs to be cut, and even added another 80-foot stretch of the forest to that list. Absurd. Angry at the extra workload, when I was already having trouble keeping up with their demands, I made one of my own. I wanted the city to send out the city planning coordinator to show me where my property line was and what exactly was my responsibility. I was positive they were hounding me about something that wasn't even mine. They brought out maps and measurement tools and showed me a 200 by 100 foot space and marked it out. This outlined the front and the north field, including the added space. I learned after it was pointed out in the pictures that I've been cutting the apple tree area for 7 years for nothing. It wasn't in the images and was outside the property line. Order up, 1 serving of malicious compliance. Instead of devoting time to dealing with the hill of the apple tree, I focused more on the north field. So now the city, and anyone getting off the highway, gets to see a horribly overgrown plot with a dead tree first thing, whereas the part no one can see is neat and tidy. As for the extra 80-foot space of the forest, the property behind us has been keeping it up. It's just 3 simple passes, but they understand as much as we do that the forest takes what the forest wants. This added space won't last long. I let this go all summer, and they only harassed me about it 1 more time since I started ignoring the apple tree area. We had also recently found out this wasn't all on behalf of the whole city council, but 1 angry member who doesn't like my landlord, and thought annoying us about it would annoy him. I can't take legal actions as I have no solid proof other than hearsay about the beef between the landlord and this council member. I do plan to start a push for their removal, however, if it was the actions of this one person being petty. The property is a rental that I have no intentions of attempting to gain ownership of. Lastly, no one really asked, but I find it entertaining that the apple tree area has sat uncut for over a month, untouched by both myself and the town. The forest can have it. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 98. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We were meant to have scary stories today. I just about had it ready to go, and I thought, well, one's a subscriber story, so we'll pop that in to start with, because, you know, it's always good to use subscriber stories. And I was looking at it, I was reading it, and I thought, this feels familiar. I'm not going to give the name of the subscriber, but you know who you are. And, as I was reading it, I thought, this seems very much like an urban legend I've heard. And it was. I looked it up. You'll find it on Snopes as the roommate's death, and there's a whole bunch of variations of it. But basically, what happens is, two girls at college, one goes to do something, the other goes to bed. They're alone, it's usually over Christmas, so there's nobody else there that would have heard or seen anything. And the girl in bed wakes up, she hears kind of scratching at the door. And she either locks the room door, or if there's not a lock, she'll lock herself in the closet or something like that. And then in the morning, when she wakes up and she opens the door, her roommate's been murdered. She's outside the door. And it turns out the roommate had been attacked and had crawled to her friend, for help. And the scratching of the door was the roommate trying to get help. And if only they'd opened, they could have saved her life. That shite. So anyway, this person had sent me this urban legend in, presumably thinking I wouldn't notice that it wasn't a real story. And this urban legend has been around since at least the 1960s, and it's been repeated many, many times since then. Now, that being said, that's why we haven't had scary stories for a while, because I just can't get the stories. Even if people are making them up, I can't get the stories. Hopefully next week, we'll see. So, revenge today. Anyway, after that grumble, we have a birthday shout-out to do. This birthday shout-out goes to Gloria. Gloria's birthday is today, also known as Gigi. They were born in 1986, so we'll do the math and we'll work out how old they are. Still younger than me, as most people are. 40 years old now. Anyway, mustn't grumble. I hope you have a very happy birthday today, Gloria, and you get to do whatever it is you want. I mean, ideally you're doing whatever you want most days of the year, but if you definitely should on your birthday. And before we go, I'm going to sing Happy Birthday, if I may. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gloria. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty, and I think we're going to wrap things up there for now. Thank you very much to everyone who joined me for the live stream. It's been a few weeks since we did one, but I was feeling like I could handle one when I recorded these. Glad I did. I do miss doing the recording streams. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.